John Fetterman, the Democratic Senate leader for Pennsylvania, just did the unthinkable in an interview with Fox. He didn't just step out of line, he bulldozed through the Democrats' major talking points. He exposed the hypocrisy, the arrogance, and the flat, straight-up delusion of the Democratic machine. You could actually see it on his face. He is tired of pretending that everything is fine, while he knows that his own party are playing these political games during a government shutdown, and most importantly, ignoring the American people. This is going to be a good one, so make sure you like, comment, watch to the end, and subscribe for daily news updates. It means the world to me, and don't forget to share. Fetterman, in effect, pulled back the curtain on the Democratic establishment. He called them out for being disconnected, for caring more about purity tests more than what's right for the people, while also implying that the party has been hijacked and that the leadership are much more worried about the primary challenges instead of what the American citizens need. They are more afraid of the primary than they are of actually delivering results. Results that will help the American people. The results that we actually need so much in this moment. In short, Fetterman just exposed all of the major fractures and the issues inside the party. He showed that if you step outside of the party's narrow line, you risk being cast out. And I'm sure that after this interview, the threat of a primary challenge is hovering over him. He's probably thinking right now of people saying, we need to find a new candidate. And for the Democrats, they now look at him as a liability. Let's start with this clip of Fetterman saying that he knows and loves people who voted for Trump.
I grew up in a conservative part of Pennsylvania, and I grew up and I know and I love people that voted for President Trump. But they are not fascists. They're not Nazis. They're not trying to destroy the Constitution and those things. And that's part of another thing. I refuse to call people Nazis or fascists, or I would never compare anybody to Hitler and those things. And now that kinds of extreme rhetoric is going to continue. We're going to be more likely in resulting in extreme kind of outcomes and political violence and doing all these kinds of things like Charlie Kirk. For me, all I could say is like, let people grieve. Give people the space. I'm not going to use that terrible thing and that Pasek assassination to make my argument and try to put out my views. It's like, my God, you know, he's a father that had his neck blown out by a bullet. And now people have forgotten. President Trump was in my state, was shot in the head. And if that would have, could you imagine where our nation would be if he was hit in the same way with Kirk? We really got to turn the temperature down. And we can agree to disagree on these kinds of things. But right now, shutting down the government.
Listening to that clip of Fetterman, he mentioned that he's the only Democrat in his family. And he shared that they're not fascists, they're not Nazis, they aren't hateful people who just want to destroy America. No. He said, turn the temperature down. You can always agree to disagree on certain things, but we can do it peacefully. For me, a big point that stuck out was the fact that Fetterman is the Democratic Senate, and he was brave enough and had the courage to go on the interview and say that he has people who voted for Trump and who love Trump, and they're his family. Like I said before, you can do nothing else but respect him. And when it comes to Charlie Kirk's death that he mentioned, he said everything basically right on point. He didn't miss a beat, and you can tell that he does know what he's talking about in that regard. He made a good question. Where would the nation be if that same assassination attempt actually took our president's life? Now I want to take a look at this clip of Fetterman being asked why he is still a Democrat if he believes in things that the Democrats literally don't support. Watch this.
You are for a very rigorous defense against Putin in Ukraine, correct? You want to stop him, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, I would fully support. In fact, I just on social media, I encourage President Trump to provide tomahawks to the Ukrainians. Okay. I mean, it's like he is probably the only person in the world that could end this terrible war. And I think, why can't we all agree that that's necessary?
You're not a wild spender. You want to get the debt under control. So why are you Democrat? Your party is against you on all three of those issues.
Well, I mean, a lot of the things that maybe I really believe in calling balls and strikes. and I think I want to follow the truths.
Why aren't you an independent then?
I mean, those are some independent thoughts, but overall, I mean, you have to pick one side, Republican,
Why?
Democrat. That's always been my party. And Bill, let me just say, it's like I'm the only Democrat in my family. I grew up in a conservative part of Pennsylvania, and I grew up and I know and I love people that voted for President Trump, but they are not fascists. They're not Nazis. They're not trying to destroy the Constitution and those things. And that's part of another thing. I refuse to call people Nazis or fascists, or I would never compare anybody to Hitler and those things. And now that kinds of extreme rhetoric is going to continue. We're going to be more likely in resulting in extreme kind of outcomes and political violence and doing all these kinds of things like Charlie Kirk. For me, all I could say is like, let people grieve. Give people the space. I'm not going to use that terrible thing and that Pasek assassination to make my argument and try to put out my views. It's like, my God, he's a father that had his neck blown out by a bullet. And now people have forgotten. President Trump was in my state, was shot in the head. And if that could you imagine where our nation would be if he was hit in the same way with Kirk? We really got to turn the temperature down. And we can agree to disagree on these kinds of things. But right now, shutting down the government, I just can't take it.
From that clip, Fetterman keeps it really cut and dry. To him, he calls it balls and strikes when it comes to any of the political issues. He's following the one that's doing the truth. And if just so happen it's not lining up with the Democrats, then you got your answer there. You can even see that he was uncomfortable answering that question. But despite that, he still did and said that he's going with the truth. So you can take it into your own hands where it looks like he's leaning towards. Fetterman also made it very clear that he's not going to go around calling people Nazis or fascists just because they have different viewpoints. He's not going to do that on any circumstances. Why? Because it's seeming that Fetterman, he's the one that has some common sense left. I want to look at this clip of Fetterman being asked by the audience about the last election, and he literally throws Kamala Harris under the bus and explains why the Dems lost. Watch this.
Thinking about winning the election, and so now that's all going to come down to 7 or 8 states. And that's really that matters. And I would like to remind everybody, because we all know that Trump ran the table, all of those kinds of states. And now you can't ever forget, these are the states that are going to determine who's going to be the next administration. And now a lot of the things, the extremism that people turned their back in 24, and that's how we kind of came up short. I campaigned for thousands of miles across Pennsylvania for Vice President Harris. And it was going to be incredibly difficult. You could just feel the energy there. And people really have connected there at a very fundamental level. And that's what I tried to explain to my party. And I'm trying to explain to the party right now. It's like, this is why we lost. And this is where we need to be to continue to win for these things. And there are parts of extreme things emerging clearly on those things. And that's why I refuse to follow that, even if that is going to cost me support in parts of the base.
Do you think Harris could have gotten a deal with Hamas?
You brought up a good point. I think I was the only Democrat early on to give President Trump credit for the peace deal.
In that clip, we can hear that Fetterman is plainly saying the reason for all of it. The reason the Democratic Party came up short, because the states that were needed to make a person president, Trump had those in the bag. The way he was going about it mattered. The campaigning for VP Harris, it was weird energy. It wasn't a connection that was being made, and that's why they came up so short. If they focused more on the real problems instead of all of the extremes that are popping up everywhere, they probably would have won. Fetterman, even now, is still trying to explain to the party why it is that way. He's trying to get them to see it for what it is. Also in that clip, we can see that Fetterman, he is giving President Trump his props. He was one of the first people to give him credit for the peace deal, and he's still the one who's getting things done that the American people actually need. Now, for a bonus clip of Stephen A. Smith.
I just want to say, there it is. trying to be very respectful to everybody because they deserve it.
Why?
Let me say that. No, because you deserve it. But let me say this. I don't think Washington understands how ticked off we truly are. Think about the conversation that we're having right now. You brought up the single-payer system, emulating Canada. You know, we're looking at a president that just gave $20 billion to Argentina. We're hearing about or witnessing what I consider to be a retribution tour. And even though to some degree I don't blame him because of how people went after him, still it appears to be counterproductive. We're listening to this kind of stuff while a young man walked up to the microphone and said that he had to leave here to go and work on DoorDash to help pay for his daughter's tuition. Meanwhile, everybody up here getting paid. But he ain't. This is this kind of stuff right here. That's how you know, and I'm not accusing any of you directly or personally of feeling this way. I'm just talking about the apparatus that is Washington, the nation's capital. This is why you have so many Americans, excuse my language, so pissed off at Washington, because somehow, some way you get to have these conversations, engage in specific elements of it to talk about what we need to do to get things better. Our debt is $37.8 trillion. Somehow, some way, the taxpayer's been paying this, been throwing money, because we all look at our check, and it's been going to the government. And somehow, some way, you're supposed to be doing something constructive and productive enough to make sure that we don't have that kind of deficit. It isn't happening. A government shutdown is going on right now. A man has to work on DoorDash when he's really an air traffic controller that we applauded. And we're up here talking about how much some money is going to cost. And the only person that don't have a check coming is him. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a break.
In that clip of Stephen A. Smith, we can see he's sharing some of his point of views. He used the platform in a good way. He said problems that we're all thinking in our heads. He used the platform to speak the words for us. He did make a great point about why are we in so much debt? If we're paying, we are using all of our money, the government is taking it, that their job is to make sure we're not in that huge debt. But it's still happening anyways. It looks like he even got so much frustrated that even at the end, he just decided to take a break and leave the stage. So thank you for watching KW Lawholic, and I'll see you next time.